Welcome to another episode of Uncomplicating Business. Today, we're going to talk about pricing. Pricing is one of the most common things that I talk about with coaching clients. It is one of the reasons people most often come to me because they say that pricing feels really complicated. So if pricing feels really complicated for you, let's talk about it. This is the case. What often people come to me with is they say something like, I want to make my price enough without it feeling like too much. I want to be fair to people. I want it to feel fair to other people, but also fair to me. I want it to be worth the money to me, but also feel like a good deal to them, right? And we're looking for this like perfect balance between not stressing other people out, but making enough for it to work, right? And that's tricky. So what we're going to talk about here on the podcast today is, finding that balance or, maybe hijacking that balance a little bit. Because I think there are any number of secrets, 3 in particular, to doing this really well. And so those are what I want to share today. Before I do that, I want to remind you that if you find this episode useful, I would love if you were open to sharing it with people you know that need it. If you share it with, colleagues that you're like, oh gosh, this was super helpful to me, that's a great way for me to help more people. If you're open to subscribing, that would be fun too. You can subscribe where you get your favorite podcast, or you can, if you podcasts are like meh, but you would rather watch it on video, all of this stuff also lives on the Uncomplicating Business channel on YouTube too. So you can go check it out there. If you want to follow or subscribe any of those places, I'd love to have you. So let's talk secrets. These are simple. They are not earth-shattering, and also they can be hard to implement because while we get them logically, emotionally is a whole different kind of thing. So here we go. The first one, and this is one I talk with people about all the time, is if you are working on pricing your service, please remember that the range of prices for whatever your service is, because there are more than you just providing the service, right? Or a service, maybe your service is unique specifically, right? Maybe it's a very specific service, but there are other service providers that do, something in a similar vein. The range of prices that are out there is wider than you imagine. Here's the thing. You can do all the research you want. What you're going to find is that there are way more people offering a service at way different price points than you realize. Like, for example, I have a client who tutors. I know people who tutor for $20 an hour, and I know people that tutor for $200 an hour. And that's just the range I, as a business coach, know. I know people that, probably tutor for more than that for specific things. But if you're like, no one's ever going to pay more than $65 an hour, that's not it, because people do already pay more than double that. I personally have been paid more than double that to tutor. Like, I started out my life as a math teacher. I have tutored kids in algebra and higher math for pretty close to $200 an hour. So for you, what are the ways that you aren't accounting for the range, that you're like, well, people can't possibly, the market is not going to my favors, when people are like, well, the market is not going to bear that. Yeah, it is, because you have no idea what the market will bear. I love you, but I need you to hear that. Like, I was telling a client the other day, she was like, I just don't know if people will pay that for this particular service. And I said, the thing I go back to time and time again is I have an actual friend, a colleague, a coaching colleague, who pays $25,000 to her coach twice a year. Yeah, you heard that right. She pays $50,000 a year for coaching. And I know in my teacher brain, I was like, holy cow, that's not a thing, but it is. It's a thing. So here's what I know. If you are a teacher, a helper, a giver, a people first kind of business owner, Well, you're more worried about the people than you are about the money, right? You're not in it to earn $1 billion. But that doesn't mean people aren't willing to pay for what you have. So think about the range a little differently. Open it up a bit. And if you're thinking like, well, yeah, that's possible for everybody else, but not for me, not for this service, call me. Come on over. Let's have a meeting. And we will find you examples of the range that are triple or double or quadruple what you think it is. Because I can always find them. I know what I'm looking for. And I guarantee you it's bigger than you're thinking. And people are paying for it because those service businesses wouldn't exist if people weren't. Like, if I said to you, I know this coach that charges $25 for $25,000 for 6 months, you'd be like, okay, she doesn't get any clients. Yes, she does, right? Her practice is full. And this is for group coaching. So, you're thinking that it can't possibly be real when in fact it is. That's secret number one. Please open up the range. Please open up what you think is possible. Because then what happens is what feels fair to you and to them gets wider, right? If we're stuck thinking there's a cap on how much we can charge, what happens is we keep the price low and then we don't love it for us. It feels like we're giving a lot and getting a little. But if we can open up the range to a place where it's like, oh, this feels really fair and people will pay it. It's like, oh. It's going to simplify pricing when you realize the range is larger than you think. That's secret number one. Secret number two is a hard one. This one, I was just talking to a friend over the weekend about, is that if everybody is saying yes, your price is too low. Logically, we get this. But emotionally, what we really want more than anything is for everybody to say yes. I get it. I want everybody to say yes too. But there are people in my world that, approach me about coaching that are not ready yet, that aren't willing to invest in themselves, that aren't, thinking about building the size of business that I'm generally working with, that are not, for lots of reasons, where we're not going to be a good fit for a whole host of reasons. And you know what? My pricing sort of helps me navigate that, because for people that are not ready or willing to invest, they're not going to pay my price, right? So if everyone is saying yes, the price is too low. If it's a great, simple deal, cool. We like a great, simple deal. But odds are, if everybody's saying yes, it's too good of a deal. I was talking to my friend over the weekend about this. And what's happening in her business is that she's running out of space for new people. Everyone is saying yes. And that's, great. It's a lovely problem to have. And at the same time, from a pricing standpoint, it means it's time to bring the number up, because the other thing she shared with me is that they do have a fair number of the people that are saying yes. They're like kind of more work than they're bringing, right? They're not paying as much as they could be, and they are causing her business more effort than she expects. So the trade is not fair. I know this is a really hard one. I've helped a couple of people this year so far, a couple of different businesses make this shift to charging more and hearing no, which is a really hard thing to do physically. Like, it is not physically, but like as a business owner, it is hard to raise your prices and then have people say no because of it. But that's kind of what we're trying to do. Logically, that makes sense, right? Emotionally, it sucks. And this is why coaching works, because those people that are in the process of doing this need someone to come back to and be like, oh my God, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back, because no, this isn't working. But yes, it is, right? It is okay for people to say no, because most of the time, and I have clients say this to me all the time, when someone says no, eventually they're like, you know what, that person would have been a really bad fit for these reasons. Or they said no, but you know what, I feel like they would have been, this wouldn't have worked out because. So every now and then somebody will say no and you'll be sad about it. She'll be like, oh, that would have been super fun. But listen, most of the time, the no's are for a reason. And often, almost all the time, yeses and no's aren't actually about money. They're about fit. They're about people's willingness to invest. It's about what they value, where they want to spend their money. Because as my friend was saying this weekend, she has some people that pay their current rate and it's a stretch for them, but they're so happy to be included in her business. They're so happy to get the service. They're so happy. And then she's got people who she knows has plenty of money and still like poke at every single tiny thing. Like they ask a billion questions about things that are kind of the wrong questions. They're just like nudgy, nudgy, nudgy. And that's frustrating to her because she knows it's not a money thing. Right, because it's not a money thing. So for you, think about, how many people have said no to you recently? Like, are you trying to price your service so that the right people come to you or all the people come to you? Because we don't want all the people. Like, not every client for a service is a good client. You know this, I know this. Like, there are times you give something away for free because somebody's amazing and you want to work with them. Fine, you're the business owner, you get to do that. But there are times where you could double the price and it would still be a bad fit. So for you, think about what you actually are trying to do. Are you trying to get everybody to say yes? Or are you trying to find people you love to work with? I'm pretty certain it's the second. So think about a price that would help you filter a bit. And I know if you're in a spot where your business is pretty new, this is a really hard thing to ask of you because you just want the people. But what I want to help you do here is help you with the idea that, if you get a ton of people in who are not great fits and you don't enjoy, what's going to happen is you end up charging a price you didn't like, feeling bad about the level of service you want to give and they want to receive, like it's mismatched, and the people are not people you're enjoying, and all of a sudden it feels like the whole thing isn't working, right? It's not. It's not that the business is broken. It's not that you're broken, but your confidence starts to fade. And it's like when people get into the confidence starts to fade and they're not the right people in front of me, this creates a whole doom spiral thing that is not super fun to be in. And maybe you're there right now. It's not fun. We can get out of that. But what's really lovely is to not start it to begin with. So for you, what I'm hoping is this idea that not everybody should say yes can help you to choose a price, because it really is choosing a price. Like, you're just picking. There's no right price. And maybe that's secret number 4. I haven't done number 3 yet, but number 4 is that there's no right price. There's no perfect answer. You're going to be in the range. Sometimes you'll be higher, sometimes you'll be lower. It's all perspective and judgment. Like, there's no answer here. You just have to choose the right one for you. So if you want to choose a price that you think some people will say no to, that's a really good place to be. Then number 3, the last secret, is that your thoughts about your price. Let's say your price is $200 an hour, right? Your thoughts about that hourly rate, your reservations, your worries, your concerns, your I don't feel like I'm worth that, your not good enoughness, your objections, all of that are the same things that people are going to toss back at you when you tell them your price. So whatever you believe is wrong with it is the same thing people are going to give back to you. It's uncanny, actually. So whatever it is we're worried about people are going to say about our price, that is 100% what we are going to hear. So our job as business owners, and this is like, if you only walk away with one thing from this episode, this is it. Our job as business owners is to believe in our price fully. What that means, and I love when people say that and they're like, okay, great, but like, what the heck? What does that mean? What that means is you feel like it fits this test. It's great for them and it's great for me, right? If you're like, this price is a great value for the service I'm giving them, this is like so good for those people, and it is a really good return for the value that I have my expertise. If you can stand firmly in your expertise and be like, yes, I got this. Yes, I'm worth this. Hell yeah. And also think, and it's an amazing deal for the people coming at me, it is going to be far easier to sell. What is going to happen is the objections are going to be, there's always going to be something, because there's always something we believe, right? But when I started, and I can say this for my own business, when I started to really, really believe in my price as, exactly the right thing, as the, sort of the perfect price for me, that feels really good for me and feels really good for them and everybody's happy about, far fewer people argued it. It's fascinating, right? Like, I didn't get as many like, oh gosh, like, are you sure it's worth that kinds of objections? And that's what I always got, those objections, because I wasn't sure it was worth that. But when I sat down and did sort of the mindset and the practice work and the, things inside my head, because that's where all this lives, it's inside our heads. I did all the inside my head work to be really confident that at that price, people are getting a really good deal and it's a great value to me. Suddenly it wasn't such a big deal. And for you, if you're going to charge, let's say $200 an hour, and you're like, oh my God, nothing I could ever do would be worth $200 an hour. It's coming back to you. So our jobs are to sit down and think about things like, why is it this value? Like, what are they actually getting and how much is that worth? Sometimes I sit down with clients and we go through this thing where I'll say, okay, write down a list for me of things you do within the service, right? Of the things somebody gets when they sign up for the service. What do they actually get? We make a list and then we put an individual price point on each of those things. And then we add it up. And it's like, oh, the price I'm charging is way lower than the value they're actually getting. So if you've never done that, it's a fun experiment. It's like, what are all the things they actually get for this service? And what would that be worth out in the world as individual pieces? Like, even just guess numbers, like if this is $50 and this is $50 and this is $100 and blah, blah, blah. Suddenly your $200 an hour is worth $600 an hour. And it's like, oh, wait. This is a better deal than I thought, because they're getting more than I realized. It is important for you to be sitting in your value, to be aware of your expertise. Like, I was talking to my friend over the weekend and she was like, my husband, she works with her husband in the business. She was like, my husband went to school for all this, all these things. People come to them, to their family business, because of the expertise that's been developed over 20 years, right? If people could do that on their own, they wouldn't need my friend's business, but they can't, because they don't have the same expertise. So part of the price they're paying is the value that they bring in expertise. That matters. Every little bit adds up. So can you walk back in to be like, okay, here are the things I know how to do. Here's what they're worth. Here's what I think they're valued at. And then if I look at the price I want to charge, oh yes, it's a really good deal. I think it's really important for you as a business owner to really think about what you believe about your price. It's hard, right? It's hard to look in this mirror, I think. But the things you are going to object to are the same things other people will. And listen, here's the one that gets me all the time. It is really hard to charge a price for something that you yourself would not pay. I know that sounds kind of crazy on some level, but like, it's the truth. Like, if you are going to charge $200 an hour for the service, but you wouldn't pay someone $200 an hour for the same service or any service, it is going to be very hard for you to sell. Because if you don't believe someone's time is worth that amount of money, how can yours be? So it is just one of those things to reflect, like, would I be willing to pay this? If the answer is no, you have some work to do, because your service could very much be valued at that. People are going to be willing to pay you that much, but it is going to be harder for you to sell if you yourself would not be willing to pay it. So I think that's like 6 secrets, maybe. Like, so we have the range is bigger than you imagine. Not everyone should say yes. You have to believe first, and your objections and your concerns are going to be coming right back at you. You have to be willing to pay what you're willing to charge. It really, really helps. I mean, you don't have to, but I think you have to. And, you know, pricing is a judgment. There's no right price. So for you, take some time, sit down, think about your pricing, think about your objections, think about the objections other people are giving you. Or if there are no objections at all, because everybody's saying yes, think about the objections you think you're going to get when you raise your price, because you need to. And if you get stuck, call me, send a message, come on to Facebook, send me an email. I'm Sarah@torpycoaching.com. Let's talk about pricing. This is a great thing to do in a one-bite coaching session. I will send you the calendar link. You will hop onto my calendar. You'll schedule a 90-minute block. You'll pay $225 and we'll be done. We'll sort out all your pricing stuff, because it really is not going to take me 90 minutes with you to sort it all out. And we'll sort out your pricing and some other stuff. And then you'll walk away. Like, there's no pitch, there's no nothing. There's like, bring your mess and we'll untangle it. Or you can come for longer term coaching, because as I said, sometimes when you're in the midst of raising your pricing and changing your thinking and doing all this, having someone to come back to you week in and week out and be like, oh my God, I can't do this. Or, oh my God, somebody said no. And having someone like me to turn around and go like, yeah, we were trying to do that on purpose. This is the plan. Feels incredibly helpful. It is helpful for me. I know it is helpful for my clients. It makes a huge difference. So if you have questions about pricing, send them over. If you're not in my Facebook group, it's the same name as this podcast. We talk about this all the time. Come on in and keep listening to the podcast. I'd love you to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.